street ball. As you can see, he's feeling a lot better with these shoes on. I've been letting him have a little mooch around the big part of the yard when I'm cleaning him out, because it's a lot easier to do the water buckets and things when he's not on the yard, because he interferes and constantly tries to drink all the buckets that you bring in. So it is a lot easier when he's not on there. So he has a little mooch around the yard. There's nothing on here for him to do anything. There's no grass or anything. And he's enjoying his little treat for being a good boy. So yes, as you can see, he's feeling a lot better. Morning guys, it's early. I'm here making out it's very a bit hot before work. A few people have asked me who don't have horses, have sort of asked me what deep littering is all about, because I mentioned it in one of my Facebook posts that I did on my personal page, and so I thought I would have a chat about how I deep litter Spirit. Now, I deep littered him because he has laminitis, and if you deep litter, you get like a padding along the bottom, and that adds like a softness to the underfloor, so when he's stood on here he gets a lot of support. Deep littering takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, because it is essentially their pee kind of makes that padding. So I'm just going to show you his stable. So Spirit's stable is actually quite big, because this is not a normal size stable. Now you can see this sort of ridge around the edge. This is like a bank, and I keep these banks clear so that there's like a channel underneath, so if there's any odd wee, it can sort of channel itself out. Now it looks about a foot high, but it's actually quite high, because when you pull back all this dry straw, you can see the pad underneath, and it's about 2 foot, the bank, so it goes back quite far and it's quite firm. I fluff it up a little bit in the day, and then when he lies against it, he kind of firms it down. You can see here I've actually laid the bed. What I do is I do it in 2 stages. So in the first stage, it's usually in the morning. What I do is I come in and I take all the poos out. He's pretty good, and I can usually find them fairly easily, and I just use a poop scoop to take all the poops out. Now sometimes he'll bury a poo, but I will find it during what I call the fluffing the bed stage usually, and then take it out. Sometimes in the middle he'll have dug a bit up, and I'll take that wet out. And then all the dry straw that I've moved to one side whilst I'm poo picking will then get relayed back on top, so it's all dry straw on the top. And then the second stage is in the evening. I do a more sort of thorough sweep, so I'll take more wet out. I don't take the bottom layer of wet out, only anything above what I call the padded layer of wet, because you don't want to take that out, because as that cures it becomes quite firm and spongy, and it also holds on to heat, so it actually keeps them warm when they lie down. So you only want to take out any wet that's above that padded layer, and that's really difficult to do in the first part of having a deep litter, because it takes weeks for that deep litter to properly lay and cure, as I call it. And then once a week, on my day off usually, because it takes time, so I pull all the dry back to where the pad is, and I take all the wet out above the pad, all of it, not just the bit that he's dug up. I take all the wet out above that layer, and then he gets a whole fresh bale of straw on the top, and the beds and the dry straw that I've pulled back usually becomes part of the bank. And then you have fresh straw on the bottom. Now the reason why I do that is that if you don't maintain your deep litter, when it comes to clearing it all out, you end up with a massive thick deep litter, and it takes hours to take out, and you don't need like a foot deep litter. You only need, you know, enough to create a padding and create some heat, and that's what you need. So once a week that's what I do. So I take all that wet out above the pad, and then as I call it, the pad. So I take all the wet out above the pad, which usually doesn't take me very long, to be fair, probably about 20 minutes, and then I put a whole fresh bale on the top, and the old dry straw becomes part of the bank. And so that every day, so it's poo picking, taking out any wee that's very obvious, because sometimes he will dig it up, so I have no choice but to take it out. And then fresh straw on the top. So he gets like 3 slabs of fresh straw a day on the top. So I use about 2.5 bales of straw a week. So 1 bale for the maintenance stage on my day off, and then he has 3 slabs of straw a day. And to be quite honest, that is quite a lot of straw, because it doesn't look like it when you're taking it over, but they're quite compacted. So yeah, so that's how I maintain his stable. It's quite easy. I find that deep littering is actually really easy for him, but the best way to deep litter is the whole stable, no gaps, because some people have a gap on the end, and there's really no point. If you're going to deep litter, you need to do the whole stable, and his stable's actually quite ginormous, and so for me it's much easier for him. He can actually roll in the stable. It's massive. It used to be for a bull, because it's an old farm, and the bull used to stay in here. So it's actually quite ginormous, so I've never really measured it, but it is much bigger than most standard stables. So he's actually quite lucky, really. So yeah, anyway, he's doing really well. His shoes have really helped. I say shoes, but they're kind of more like a rubber croc. Have really helped, and they've made him loads more comfortable. He's actually standing out in the yard all the time now. He's eating much better. He's still only eating about 6.5 kilograms a day, which is actually ideal for him to keep losing weight. I've been weighing it just to keep an eye on his consumption. I haven't been stopping him eating hay though. He's always got like an overflow net, so anything left over from the night before goes into the overflow net, and then he's always got that as a backup if he runs out of his main net. But he's doing really well. He lost another 7 kilos, so he's up to about 106 kilograms he's lost. He needs to lose another, I just got to remember now, about 70 kilos he needs to lose to get down to his ideal weight. But he's getting there, and he's doing really well, and hopefully in about 4 weeks we'll be moving to a new livery. I found an awesome livery that has a track system, and the lady there is really clued into natural livery, and you know how horses should have forage, etc. And so when he's well enough, which is hopefully fingers crossed in 4 weeks, she'll be moving him there, so that when he's ready to go back onto grass, he'll be on suitable forage and he won't be getting ill again. So I'm really looking forward to that, and obviously I'll show you the journey of him doing all that as well. You know, transitioning from stable, because obviously laminitis is quite a big deal, and not everybody who knows about it. So yeah, that's how you deep litter, guys. Bye. Good afternoon, guys. Well, late afternoon, nearly evening time. I just thought I would show you the opposite end of the day, because this morning I showed you the morning, or what I do in the morning, so I thought I'd show you what happens in the afternoon. So this afternoon I took all the poopies out again, and this whole middle bit here, all the way down to here, he dug up. So I took all that out. So there's a couple of wheelbarrows of wet that I took out, and then all the dry that I'd put to one side I put back down, and then he's had his 3 strips of straw on top. Now obviously if you've got a smaller stable, you probably find you'd only need 2 strips, but this is a really large stable, and you can see I've put all the straw and I flattened it all down, made it look nice, put the banks back up. But you can't really tell, you can see a little bit of a ridge there as you go along. But he's been lying this side recently, whereas normally he lies this side, but recently he's taken to pooping this side and lying that side, whereas he was doing it the other way around before. So he was lying here and pooing there, so he's kind of swapped sides. But yeah, so he's had his 3 strips of straw. I do that every day. I do it at night because I got a bit more time to lay the bed properly. So I tend to do that in the afternoon or the evening. And I find that works really well for me, because obviously with work and everything I have to come down here really early, and so I do the easiest pick in the morning, make him comfortable for the day, and then we sort of go do the one that takes the most work, because I tend to spend half an hour in the morning. There's his nighttime hay net. He still has some hay on the gate here. I don't take it out. If he's got hay left, then I leave it there. He's having about 3.5 kilograms in each hay net that I put in. Approximately, it's probably overall he's getting about 6.5 kilograms because I worked it on an average, and then that's his overflow net over there. Over there, that's his overflow net. And so if he ever has anything left in this nest, then that goes into that net, becomes his overflow net. So he's always got hay, no matter what. There's always some hay. So if he decides to eat all that, there's always something left. And then if he ever does empty that one, then I put a fresh whole one in there, which I weigh out, so he's not getting more than 3.5 kilograms in each net at all, which is about 7 kilos. Hello, we're talking about you. You've got a nice fresh bed. You're going to wee on it? That's what he normally does. Normally comes in and wees on it. It's like his seek of approval. He's like, oh, I'm going to eat my hay. So that's his approval, basically. I'm going to pee on my nice fresh bed, which will look like a mess again in the morning, but never mind. But yeah, so it is quite simple to do deep litter. Some people prefer to skip out, which is where you take all the dry out as best as you can, and then you take all the wet out every day. But if you're working and you haven't got like masses of time, then the deep litter is a way to go, especially if you've got a tidy horse. If you've got a horse that's not very tidy, then it's not very easy to deep litter. But most of the time, 90% of the time, he's really tidy. Like, this was quite unusual for him to dig up that part of the bed. And I think part of the issue is that he does like to bury his poos, and I think that's why he kind of dug it up. And unfortunately, he dug up some of the curing pad underneath, so I had to take it out, and I've had to kind of relay it as best I can. But never mind, it happens. But yeah, I mean, it takes me half an hour in the morning. That's hay nets, but I always get his hay nets ready the night before, so I'll take his hay net into the shed and prepare it for in the morning. And then I top his water up just about before I'm about to go, but he's got loads of water because he's got one in here and he's got 2 out in the yard, and he's actually probably got more water than he needs, but he can never have too much. So yes, he's like, what are you doing, mummy? You're on the camera, Spirit. Yeah, you're on the camera. But he's looking so much better because he's actually been mooching around on the big main yard, and he's actually chosen to come in to be with me, which is really sweet. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you how it all happens. He's going to pee. He's definitely going to pee. He's doing the peeing stand. He's going to pee. So I'm going to leave you now before I make my horse. Alright, bye.